Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and waiting to be profiled is vocalist Ronnie James Dio and director John McFarlane. Ronnie James Dio, singer and songwriter, started in heavy metal's premier band Black Sabbath. After a 3-year hiatus, he's back to reunite his drummer and the rest of his friends in the 80s band Dio. In 1983 and 1984, the original Dio earned platinum status for albums Holy Diver and The Last in Line. Now, Ronnie, before we go any further, you have to tell us what heavy metal is.
Well, it was a term that was coined originally by a guy named John Kay, who was in a band that did the song Born to be Wild. The band was Steppenwolf. And the first time that word was ever mentioned, really, in any kind of status that people would remember was from that song. The line was heavy metal thunder. And someone must have heard that word and said, wow, heavy metal, that's a wonderful way to explain what this music is about. Well, it's just, certainly the heavy part takes care of most of it. It's very big sounding, very bottomy sounding. It doesn't apologize for the music that it makes. It attacks you. It comes after you. It's very aggressive. That's really what heavy metal music is. It's just, it's bigger than life itself. Those of us who make it anyway.
Does it use certain instruments? Does that make it louder or bigger than life?
Well, of course. I mean, you know, this is the, what should we say? We shouldn't say the century. It's the last 3 decades of the guitar. That's, you know, I mean, the guitar has become the premier instrument of the world. And I guess, you know, the reason would have to be hearkening back to, you know, from Les Paul to Elvis Presley to the things that came along. The guitar was the instrument that was easiest to play for the normal person, for the average everyday person. You could pick up a guitar, play a chord, even if it didn't sound right, it kind of made some sense to you. So the guitar, being the premier instrument, is the instrument that is the foundation of heavy metal music. Of course, that's a big, crunchy guitar sound, or gnarly as the word used to be. But it has to be coupled, of course, with some other very important factors, and that's drums and bass. Without drums and bass, there's no sense for the drummer or the guitar player or the singer to be there.
But every band has drums, bass, and guitar. You must do something different with it.
It's all attitude, Joan. It really is.
Is it really more of that?
It's attitude. You have to want to play that kind of music. You want to have to go out and unconsciously think that you're going to be smashing people over the head with a hammer. That's the way drummers think, for a start. Good ones in heavy metal. They play bigger than life.
I see.
I think we'd all have to give a guy named John Bonham the credit for drummers being influenced the way that this man played was like someone from another planet. He gave all the impetus to those who came after him. And heavy metal really started, I'd say, more with John Bonham as a drummer than anyone else.
Do you play the drums, or do you play an instrument?
No. Yes, I do play. I play a lot of instruments, some of them passably well, some of them very badly. But I started as a trumpet player when I was 5 years old.
Oh, so you've been very musical. Where was that, 5 years old? Where were you?
I was in upstate New York, a town called Cortland, New York, which is, for anyone who knows anything about New York at all, is between the cities of Syracuse, New York, and Binghamton, New York. Some people may know where Syracuse is from its sporting teams, from its basketball and football teams. Other than that, probably wouldn't know where it was. But right in the middle of nowhere, dairy farming community, 18,000 people. Strange that you can escape from that, but you can, you know.
Yes,
all you got to do is want to get out.
Farming community?
That's right, yeah, dairy community. You know, we did a lot of cow tipping in our days. Those things really happen. You get pretty bored in a little town like that. But my goal was to get away from there. I never wanted to be there for the rest of my life. It was a great place to grow up because you got good moral attitudes. You grew up well.
Did you go to all your schooling there?
I did.
You did everything there? Because I know you have this a very Catholic background, you said.
That's right.
And that's where you learn the morals. Did those backgrounds come in handy when you started writing songs?
No, I don't think so.
They didn't?
I'm really kind of anti that, if you want to know the truth.
But it did actually then. It worked
did,
for you in a way.
It did, but I think if you think of it in conventional terms, it wasn't as though they were trying to teach me good morals so I could rail against them, you know, and say, I don't like what you said. But that's what happened, you know. I mean, I got to the point where, luckily being a strong person in my own mind, I made up my mind real early that what I was being told and what I was seeing didn't quite fit the bill for me. It wasn't right for me. To me, if there was a God, he resided in me and you. He didn't reside in some place with a roof over the top of it. I didn't feel the need to have to do that. I felt it was a complete waste of my time. And to this day, I still feel it's a complete waste of my time.
But did you start feeling like that after you left Syracuse or
No,
that area?
I probably felt like that when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I first felt like that.
Oh, you did?
I saw the inconsistency in it all, you know. And now I think it's proven itself right to this point where I feel religion, especially the Catholic religion, is a business. It's not a religion anymore. What's their religion? A dollar?
Oh, so you really did start having those feelings as you moved along.
Absolutely.
Then, did you just start writing songs first, or did you use your instrumentals?
I started actually writing instrumentally because I wasn't the singer in the band. The first band I had, I was 11 years old in my first band.
Oh, you were?
And I played the trumpet in that band. It was hard to sing and play the damn thing at the same time, of course. So I didn't do that. I was the guy who didn't want to do anything but play the music. I didn't want to sing. When everyone tried and everyone kind of fell by the wayside and they finally said, okay, it's your turn. And I went, I don't want to sing. So it was my turn and I did. And they said, well, you did a really good job of that. Maybe you should be the singer.
Did you have voice lessons or anything?
Never had any voice lessons, no. I've just been very blessed with an ability of a voice, but I think more properly blessed with the intelligence to know what to do with it. I mean, because a lot of people got a lot of talent, but they don't know what to do with it. You got to not abuse it.
So once you started writing, what instrument did you use to play back what you were writing or the words? I don't know. Tell us how it starts.
Well, I went from being the trumpet player in the band to when I did start singing and couldn't play and do the same, those two things simultaneously, I became a bass player, which was a little bit easier.
Stand-up bass or bass guitar?
No, bass guitar. Bass guitar, because that's where the strength was for me. So I started to use the bass and the guitar as an instrument to write the things that I did, and to this day, I continually do the same. Oh, I write on keyboard as well, piano, and mainly guitar.
Do you write as a collaboration, or do you always write alone?
We did this entire album as was very collaborative, and
this is the album we have
that's
here.
right, Strange Highways.
Oh, Strange Highways.
That's the name of the album. Yeah. We did this all together. We did it the way we were supposed to do it, the way that all bands started doing it. That was, you find a garage, or you find your folks' basement, or you find some place that some nice, kindly soul wants to give you so you can make a lot of noise, and then you take all the grief that they give you when they keep telling you to shut up, and if you can get through all that, then you realize that the best way to do it is to use all of the talent around you, and that means all of the people around you, not to get on some kind of big ego horse and say, I do everything myself. Because if you don't use all that wonderful talent that people have, you're a fool. I've gone through times where I've had to do it all alone, and perhaps wrongfully so, insisted that I do it all myself. And that, for the situation, perhaps it was right. But now we've been able to go back to the real way to do it. We played for 9 or 10 hours a day.
You do?
9 or 10 hours a day, and write that way.
And to make an album like this is called simply, well, it's called Strange Highways,
yes.
But Dio is the biggest part of it right down here. And it's all about world suffering, I think.
Well, it's a real angry album.
Is that
very angry album?
But that's kind of in keeping with hitting people over the head, like you said.
Well, it's a great medium to do it with. I mean, I don't think you can change the world by whispering to people. I think, unfortunately, we have to make violent statements to have some peaceful solutions. That's the only way.
And that's what's in this album?
That's right.
Tell us the name of one of the songs. And
well, this will fit very nicely in with what we were talking about before, which was the Catholic upbringing. There's a song on this called Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost, and I guess you can't get too much more religious than that. But the song is really autobiographical in that I did grow up that way. I was introduced to the Catholic Church at perhaps age 6, taken from school and told we were all going as a group now into this great Gothic structure, which was the church that I went to, introduced to the giant penguin that was the nun. You know, and I don't mean that to be, I mean, it was set in a Blues Brothers film, so I'll just say, let it be their fault, not mine. But there were all these inconsistencies that were in front of me. This is the person that we've come to worship, and there he is, nailed to a piece of wood. And here's his mother, who was a piece of stone with stone eyes, and don't forget the most important one, the Holy Ghost. I mean, I was frightened enough about ghosts in particular at 6 or 7 years old, let alone told that there's a holy one somewhere. I found it all to be very mind-boggling for someone that young. I was lucky that I was able to take all this and sift it out.
But here we are a couple of decades after what you're talking about, and it still made an impression on you, and you've still written your newest album and your new songs about that.
That's right. Well, I never took the time to make the statement, you see. It was always perhaps something that was hidden inside of me that I felt maybe no one else had the same kind of feelings that I did. And I write songs, the things that I write personally. I mean, again, the band wrote this album, but the things I write, because I'm the lyricist, were things that I felt still did bother people, that maybe this was the time to mention it. It did bother me.
Do you talk about other problems in the world on this album?
Yes, of course. I mean,
besides religion.
Yeah. See, I must preface it by saying that we didn't make this album to try to solve the problems of the world. That's an impossibility.
Right.
No more could Bob Dylan or Joan Baez stop the war in Vietnam. That was stopped because too many young people died, and eventually the world got sick of seeing the death of our cream of our society.
But you can bring things to the forefront. You can make people understand what other people are thinking. And
Yes,
in that way, you can make an impact on the youth.
Well, that's why I say I try to write songs for people and not songs about people. If you're right, because I feel that there are so many people in the world who have wonderful statements to make, but they don't have the same forum that I do, which is a stage most of the time,
Right.
or a record, which is another kind of stage, another kind of forum. So I'm trying to make these shouting statements for these people who feel the same as I do, as in the film, what was it, Broadcast News, was
Yeah.
it called? We've had enough and we're not going to take it
Right.
anymore.
Right.
And that's what this is all about. And that's why I make these statements, because I know that people don't have the opportunity to make them as I do. So I make them for them. And these are shouting, screaming statements. We're angry about what's going on. How dare you do this to the generation of people who are coming up and going to take the chairs that you and I sit in? How dare us do that to them? And so that's a lot what this album has to say.
Do you are you always on a soapbox? Are you all the time, or do you ever
No.
have a chance to relax? Do you do other things?
Oh, I relax a lot. I relax a lot. I love what I do very much. I'm the luckiest person on earth. I get to do what I love every day of my life.
So practicing is love.
Music is love for me.
mean,
Everything
it's-
that I do that has anything to do with music is love for me. And so, again, I'm the most fortunate person on earth, with the exception of maybe the other three guys. We all do what we want to do. And success has given me the luxury of not having to do what I had to do in the beginning. I mean, nothing was an overnight thing. We worked real hard for what we've got.
How do you feel when you're on the road? Do you feel out of your milieu, or do you feel more in your milieu when you're on the road?
I think I feel part of a situation that's us against them.
Oh,
I think whenever you're a band with its road crew and all the people who make a show go together, it's always you against the rest of the world. Here you are going to a different town every day,
Right.
seeing people that you've not met before. There are lots of threats there. What do people normally do when they have groups of people who are threatened? They band together and they thwart the threat, so to speak.
so it makes your band, it makes you closer with your band,
Absolutely.
but you don't have the time to rehearse the same way or practice, do you?
Sure we do.
You do when you're on the road?
Well, yeah, you do a sound check every day.
And how long
That's
does
important.
that take?
Well, it can be, as long as an hour, as
Oh.
short as 5 minutes. Depends on what you need to do. The purpose of the sound check, of course, is to be sure that what you're going to be projecting to an audience when they do come in is going to be at least feasibly correct. See, the problem with sound checks is that you usually go into a hall. Let's say the hall holds 12,000 people. Well, you go in there. How many people are in there? Well, no one's been allowed in yet, so there are
That's right.
300 people there. Security and whatnot. As soon as the people come in, the sound changes completely. So
Right.
why did you do that? Well, there are reasons for doing it are so that you don't have additional problems when you get to it. So you hire the right people, they're going to do the job for you. But again, on the road, I don't mean it you against them by we have to go out and fight everyone, but you feel protected and very clannish and very close when you get on the road this way.
Before we leave, tell us where the most exciting road trips are, in Europe or in America?
Well, they're all exciting for me. My favorite town is Philadelphia.
Oh, so you like the United States? Great.
Well, I like
Do they
everything.
respond to you?
Philadelphia had always been for me the place where I was accepted and loved most of all. When I first joined Black Sabbath, I'll never forget going out on the stage at the Spectrum and seeing, I think there were 17,000 people there, and someone held up a sign and it said, "Philadelphia welcomes the Reverend Ronnie James Dio."
Yay!
And I thought, isn't that wonderful? And they've just always been the kindest, most wonderful people to me on earth in Philadelphia. Although I love to play every city, Philadelphia will always be the most special place in my heart.
That's wonderful, and it's very special to have you with
Thank
us
you,
today,
John.
too,
Thanks. It's
Ron.
been